goes because there's a delay. I have it open on my screen over here. And then Christo can introduce me. I'll say our 3 minutes of welcome and we'll get started.
And we're live.
Go ahead, Christo.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our new event, State of STEM 2022, where we're going to be discussing how those virtual hands-on STEM work. Of course, there's a mistake on the name. We have today partners from the New Jersey School Boards Association, 1080, INSL, and the RIJR from Mexico. We're happy to have you all here. Welcome to this event. I'm going to introduce Dr. James Lipuma, that he's going to be doing the introduction, and he's going to start talking about how we start to get this project. So Dr. James Lipuma is the director for the Collaborative for Leadership Education and Research at the NJIT. Dr. James Lipuma.
Hello, everyone. I'm also the head of the New Jersey STEM Pathways Network STEM Month Committee, which is an idea that's existed for several years, since 2014 was the first. And the main goal of STEM Month is to encourage people to showcase and share their ideas around STEM. The New Jersey STEM Pathways Network is an initiative of the Research and Development Council of New Jersey, and they really help connect the educational efforts and the local community efforts with the state legislature and other organizations that are interested in promoting STEM. So this year we've reached 35,000 or in excess of 35,000 learners. And it's been really tough, especially in the time of COVID. One of the things that was typically done was sharing the events on the calendar for NJSPN and using the resources they provide. And that's what's led us to want to talk about and bring together people who have been able to virtualize or take what they had used to do in face-to-face events or in going into schools and doing it after school and things like that and make it online. And so the interest around this was promoted to us by many of our superintendents and other educational stakeholders across the state and in other states, so that we could understand how better to help our students learn and remain interested in STEM. And so that was really the impetus behind this initiative. Now, beyond that, as my role as the director of the Collaborative for Leadership, Education, and Assessment Research here at NJIT, I work with the National Science Foundation Includes project to promote broader participation by traditionally underrepresented groups, especially women and other minorities, disabled students. In that capacity, I've brought together and have been working with over the last several years a number of different STEM providers within New Jersey, locally, nationally across the state and internationally. And I thought it was a really interesting opportunity to bring them together, invite them to share what they do so that people have a glimpse, not only what might be done in their one school or across their district or even in their county or state, but to see and better understand how these same activities are being handled on a broader scale, and that we all share a common space, that if we can communicate and share better and interact, we have the ability to enhance STEM for all. And so I'll turn it back to Christo, where he can talk about what our agenda for today is and get us started into the real meat of the presentation, which is, of course, the STEM providers and other researchers and professionals that will talk about the state of STEM and how to do virtual hands-on STEM where you are. Thank you, Christo.
Thank you, Dr. Lipuma. So today we're going to be having some different tools for accessibility with everyone. As discussed before, we have STEM providers from the New Jersey School Board Association. We have a STEAM Tank. We have also 1080 Education, INSL, and the Red Investigadores de Juegos de Rol from Mexico. And we are going to be sharing with you our agenda. The agenda is also a link that we're going to be sharing with everyone in the meeting, and you can follow each one of the items is in the agenda, so you can just click on the name and see what is the item to. Today we're going to have our welcome from review and openings. We're going to have a roundtable number 1, which is the discussion and conversations about blended and virtual STEM experiences. with our service providers. That's going to be 1080 and Steam Tank and INSL, the International STEM League. We're going to have a break 2 p.m. with the Raffle and Giveaways, in which we're going to ask everyone that is participating here to fill in a form. You can just follow this link to see that form. We're also going to be sharing the link with all of you. This is just a simple Google form where you can just put your name and your email to enter the raffle. At 2:10, we're going to start with the roundtable 2, where we're going to open the discussion of role play and STEM. We're going to be having some faculty at NJT and some guest speakers from Mexico and different universities of Mexico, talking about this role playing and STEM. At 3 p.m., we'll have the winners announcement and the closing remarks. And then at 3:10, we're going to have 2 breakouts, one in Spanish and one in English. So all of the participants are going to be able to select one of the rooms to have an informal discussion with the groups in both languages. So again, the way the agenda works is you just go here, click on the name, and you're going to see what is the agenda. Some of the items have actually some PDF or raffles or giveaways or materials that you can download. And also we'll eventually going to be sharing the PowerPoint presentation of the event. As Dr. Jamie Puma mentioned, we are also having a live stream on YouTube. So for people that cannot access WebEx, you can also have just the live stream on YouTube. So with that, I'm gonna then start turning on to our roundtable 1, which I'm just gonna start introducing our presenters today. So I'm just gonna do the introduction. So from 1080 Education, we have Cindy, Jan, and Teresa Stripling that are joining us. If you wanna just introduce yourself, hello.
Hi there. Hi. I'm actually Terry. I know you said 2 names.
Terry.
I'm Terry.
I'm Cindy.
And we are from 1080 Education. My background is in chemical engineering. I got involved in education by volunteering in the classroom, by doing some work on authentic assessment. And we look forward to telling you more about what we do at 1080.
And my background's education. I've been in schools and management of schools and nonprofit organizations forever. But I've been with 1080 for about 8 years now.
Thank you very much. Now, yeah, I guess I'll do the same for INSL. So we have Jenny Ruiz and Beverly Siemens. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I am Jeannie Ruiz, the Executive Director of the International STEM League, and I've been in education 25 years or so now, informal and formal, and I do a lot of the curriculum development and program development. So we'll share our programs with you in about, 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And Beverly?
Hi, I am Beverly Siemens, and I work with INSL as the board leader. And I have also been in education, both as a teacher and as a curriculum developer, and as a STEM spokesperson around this country and a couple of others. So I'm very excited that we will be sharing some of the lessons learned and the curriculum developed over the years.
And also joining us from the New Jersey School Board Association and the Steam Tank is the Senior Manager of the Steam Tank and Sustainable Schools Program, the Director of the Steam Tank, which is John Henry. John.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. As Christo said, I'm the Senior Manager for STEAM and Sustainable Schools. I've been with New Jersey School Boards Association for 10 years. Total time in education has been 29. Spent 14 years in the class as a classroom teacher in tech ed and ed tech. And then I did about 2 years at NASA headquarters as an Einstein Fellow, and then came back to the state and run a lot of programs in the state. And I'm going to be talking about Steam Tank in particular today, which is an entrepreneurial design challenge. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So thank you.
And just because we still have some time before we actually start our round table 1, I'm just going to be introducing our partners from Mexico, from the Red Investigadores de Juegos de Rol. We're going to be having the round table 2 after the first one with them. So is joining us Dr. Miguel Ángel Bastarrachea Magnani. He is an assistant professor for the University Autónoma Metropolitana of Iztapalapa. Miguel.
Hello. Yes, I'm Miguel Bastarrachea. Nice to meet you. I'm the president of the a role-playing researchers network in Mexico, and we are very happy to be here joining you, sorry.
And also with us is Dr. Edgar Meritano, which is also an assistant professor from the same university, but on a different campus on Azcapotzalco. Edgar?
So greetings, everyone. Thank you for your invitation. And I am mainly a semioticist, a cinematic semioticist, and a fashion photographer. That's right. Cool.
Thank you very much. So right now we're going to then be moving into our agenda item number 1, which is the roundtable 1. So as discussed before, let me share the other one. In the roundtable 1, we're going to have the discussion and conversation about blended and virtual STEM experiences with the International STEM League, INSL, and Steam Tank and 1080. So we're going to be passing now the presentation rights to our panelists so they can start leading the conversation. So.
Good. All right, hi everybody. So it's the 3 groups here. We've decided we're going to put together a 40-minute discussion, and the plan is that we're going to start, I believe, with a bit of our shared mission. It's going to be sort of the 3 of us speaking a little bit together, and then we're going to give you each a bit of a kind of a 3-minute pitch, not as if we were on a stage giving it for competition, but we're going to tell you in as little as 3 minutes really about our programs, with maybe 2-minute sort of float in there for some extra points. And then we're going to open it up. We're going to really show you the bullet points, what we think are the high points to take away from our programs. And we're going to ask you to help us figure out what we want to talk about next with a little bit of a Google survey. So it's going to be interactive. If you guys are watching through YouTube and you can't open the link and you don't vote, I'm pretty sure we can fill the next 10 or 15 minutes with our own thoughts. So I'm going to start by just, let me take the 5 seconds here to share. I cannot share the content, so I need to be a co-host.
Also, assisting us with the technology, we have Daniel Livingston, so he's going to be giving you the access in 1 second.
Okay, great.
Coordinate that. Do you want me to share the Jamboard meanwhile?
You know what? We just made a Google.
Okay.
Super simple, right? So folks can go on, click a couple buttons,
click it
you
there.
got our results. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Daniel, if you can
There
confirm.
we go. Great. Yep, I'm in. I'm in. Okay, so I've got a couple of things open here. What are you guys seeing? Are you seeing the presentation?
That is correct.
slides?
We're seeing the
Okay.
slides.
Okay, great. We are actually, these are some slides we've got up here from INSL, just some visuals. We've got a Steam Tank video and a video from us at 1080. But Beverly and John and Jeannie, I invite you to help us introduce this. But the 3 of us, you know, our 3 programs, we align in a lot of ways, which is why I believe it's just a natural way to have this kind of conversation between these 3 programs. All of our programs really are team-oriented, open-ended in the sense that we really invite the students to be creative. The topics that we all address are slightly different. The emphasis and the level of which we provide curriculum is different. And so we look forward to telling you about that. But in the end, we all really believe heavily in asking students to get to know themselves, to actually apply the design cycle to their lives by trying out new things, seeing what they think is important, showing their work to judges, getting out there and competing in the world and collaborating with other folks. So there's a lot of overlap, as I think you'll hear. So I'm happy going right into our detailed pitches for 3 minutes apiece, but I invite you guys, Beverly, Jeannie, and John, to chime in sort of as that quick introduction to this little panel.
I agree with you. I think we've had a lot of discussions over the last couple of years about what students need, what teachers need, especially in light of having to go full virtual, because we've always been extremely hands-on. And in the end, what we came down to was relationship building. And I think that's something that all 3 of us aspire to, is that we build relationships for students to their mentors, to their peers, so that they kind of know where they're going in life, We build relationships in our communities to provide the network and the structure to make them successful. And we provide in our case, a relationship to mathematics and to the tech and the STEM so that they're comfortable with it and don't drop it halfway through middle school, which is what has ended up happening with a lot of girls. So I agree with you. I think relationships are kind of what tie us all together.
John, did you want to say something before we start the formal roundtable agenda?
Yeah, I do. I think that's really important. I'm glad you mentioned collaboration because even with Steam Tank, and I know with your organizations as well, connecting students with what we call subject matter experts, whether they're engineers, whether they're patent lawyers, teachers, science folks who have science background, incredibly important for students to connect beyond the teacher, beyond the classroom, beyond the four walls of the classroom or the school building itself. The world becomes the classroom to them in a virtual, especially now that we've been going through this for a couple of years now, the virtual has really kicked in. And we know what to do now with this. We did before, but the virtual connecting remotely, connecting with people that they normally might not have considered connecting with is really huge.
Great. Yeah, and I think you'll see that in some of the details as we get going. So we're going to give you guys just a 3-minute pitch with a little bit of additional discussion on each program, and then we're going to open it up for a conversation. So this is where I'm going to be a tiny bit challenged. I think I hit my share screen without saying I want it to also show the videos. So why don't you guys, I'm going to stop sharing and then share again and tell it that I want it to show the video. Okay. All right, let's give this a go. So I'm going to start here and tell you about our program, but I would love for you to tell me if you can see the video. Let me close all these windows out that I'm about to play you. Are you seeing my whole screen?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. Really, I don't have a full presentation. I've just a video that's going to be running in the background to give you some visuals as we go through this. So are you seeing the whole screen or are you seeing the video, the presentation?
You see the video.
Screen.
The
Okay.
video inside the presentation.
Great. Okay, so you're
It
just
looks
seeing the
good.
video right now because I'm about to pull up my notes and I don't want you to see those. Okay. Well, so, we all talked about 21st century learning and collaboration. I think you can see from these videos that our team is out there working with other folks all over the country and in China. At its core, 1080 is about widening the bridge between industry and education. And we do that through STEM experiences, primarily curriculum, competitions, and custom experiences. Now you'll see, through these images, 1080 has a whole bunch of things out in the world, but it really does come down to curriculum, competitions, and custom experiences. And we're inviting all students into the 21st century workforce and 21st century citizenry. We can all sort of have a conversation about that at the end. What do we mean by 21st century citizenry? Really, it isn't just widening the bridge between education and industry. It's also about focusing intensely on making that bridge something that students want to and are capable of walking across, or crawling across or sprinting across. But this bridge between education and industry is really what we're all about. So what does this version of our mission look like? Because a lot of folks could actually say that and do say that. We really want to call out what happened last week. So really for 1080, the mission was exemplified in what we did last week. We took a team out to Anaheim and we ran the largest student competition for the National Society of Black Engineers at their annual convention. 1080's been running this competition we learned about 10 years there, and it has become their largest interactive for their PCI, their pre-collegiate initiative. And it really brings together why all of us do what we do and we believe in what we do. So it looks like, let me just back up, right? So the junior chapters, these NSBE chapters are all over the country. They are elementary, middle school, and high school. And they've been gathering in afternoons and weekends for about 10 years now. For the most of the time, they've been optimizing an advanced electric car. It also happens to be about tenth size of a real car. They also retrofit that car to drive autonomously. So this is 1080's real theme is through the years. We have stuck with the automotive and all of the different bridges that come from it. But more than automotive, the students own a business, and they pretty much do everything that comes through this business. So what is our mission? Sorry? Yep. So what does our mission look like? It looks like Anthony Brown. I'm going to start this video over again. He is one of our mentors who's been with us quite a while. He had an experience there where he was talking to a student in the morning who was pretty much disdainful and disinterested. And he told us that, you know, my friends are making me do this. I don't want to be here. I don't know why I'm here. Well, through his mentorship, through the activities of his team member, through everyone there working with him, this particular student at the end of the day was a leader. He was laughing and he was out there proudly doing what he does. And in Anthony's words, we are breaking generational chains and changing life paths. So it looks like a Newark charter school leader who was a judge of ours, and he was raving about his experience, and he's sharing videos all over social media now, trying to get other folks that he knows involved in the 1080 STEM challenges. It looks like the Blazing Beauties, who are a group out of Bronx, an all-girls competition, and they're working on an autonomous vehicle. And they actually really initially embraced the enterprise part of it as an entry point for this all-girls team, where they were working on their marketing and their management. And this year, they are really killing it with the autonomous vehicle. So it's an entry point through the enterprise. It ends up doing a lot of technical work. So where students couldn't travel because of COVID, our team really got creative, and we have not only used the virtual stuff, but maybe we can show you some of this during the open discussion. We created a specialized app where we bring students all over the country and in China together. The data that they gather at their own home, they are able to bring together in an app so that they feel that they're working together, even though they're isolated at home. And frankly, that's going to continue to be a problem because of budget as much as it is as anything else. So the NSBE finals really shine a spotlight on our students and our mentors. And it is our success in this work that launches partnerships with groups such as the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, SME, SAE, Automotive Engineers, the U.S. Army, America Makes. We're working with all these folks to fill the gaps in manufacturing, the manufacturing workforce, developing creative STEM events and challenges to highlight careers that require a more robust and diverse talent pool. So we are prioritizing hands-on learning, cultivating the use of data in the design cycle, extending the learning with a virtual reach, engaging the underrepresented, breaking generational chains, as Anthony said. 1080 Education is a STEM partner for today's students and tomorrow's workforce and tomorrow's citizens. So that's really what we want to put out there. We wanted to put out some images, tell you about, really what it feels like to work with some of what we do. And during the discussion, if you have more detailed questions, we can talk specifically about the curriculum and the competitions and the events and how we work out there in the world. So that's I think 5 minutes, my 3 minutes plus some float. And who did we decide is going next?
I think Steam Tank is next.
Steam Tank is next. So John, you want to take the screen?
I just need permission to take it, and I will, sure.
And as Daniel is assisting us in changing the permissions, you're going to see that I'm sharing on the chat the links to the websites in case the participants want to visit the websites of our STEM providers. And I'm going to also be sharing other resources in our chat. And you're also welcome to post any questions into the chat, as I'm going to be putting them together to lead the Q&A at the end.
I'm going to optimize and share this. I'm just going to play a short 2-minute video. Can everybody see the screen?
Correct. We're seeing the video.
This is just a 2-minute ago. It's a couple of years old, but it'll give you the essence of what Steam Tank is. So I'm just going to play this real quick.
And competition. Steam Tank began in 2015 with a unique partnership between NJSBA and the U.S.
Yes, it's all good.
The competition was developed to provide students and educators the opportunity and a platform to experience real-world problem solving. In the Steam Tank Challenge, students are asked to think like entrepreneurs be creative, and re-engineer our world with their authentic and innovative solutions. Steam Tank provides students the opportunity to have a real-world experience and to gain valuable skills that will serve them during their time in school and when they enter the workforce. The skills they learn from participating in Steam Tank will help prepare them to meet whatever challenges they may face in their future endeavors. Steam Tank was intentionally designed to be open-ended so students can explore what they wanted to design and invent. Students are asked as a team to identify a real-world problem or situation that needs resolution, modify an existing product to make better, or invent something that does not yet exist. This year, there were over 400 submissions, and 90 teams made it to the finals. And the winners are at the high school level. First place goes to Manasquan High School for their firefighters.
I'm going to stop it there and I'm going to move on to a presentation. Can you still see the slideshow that I'm bringing up now?
Yes, it's correct. Yeah.
Good. So the really cool thing about Steam Tank is I think the collaboration and the partnerships that we developed over the number of years that we've been doing it, which is about 7. The last 2 years we've been doing it virtual. So, and again, just like everybody on the call today, is how do we do virtual learning and hands-on? And so, I think we've done a pretty good job of figuring that out over the last 2 years. And I'm just going to go through this. This is my team here. It started with the U.S. Army. We had a partnership with them. They sponsor Steam Tank right now, and they also provide a STEAM fellow, who is right now, it's Captain Andrew Becker, who has a degree in aerospace engineering. So he's been a great resource. But this partnership is one of my better partnerships, I think, that we have in school boards. They provide subject matter experts for the teams in Steam Tank. Just amazing resources and a collaboration that we have with other partners as well, including NJIT. We also have partners with the Department of Education and the Teachers Union, the judging panels. We have entrepreneurs, business people who surround the students and help them with their projects that they choose. When you heard in the video, when we say it's intentionally designed to be open-ended, we do not pick the categories for them. The students pick the categories. The students are in complete control. And what we do is we train the teachers to be more hands-off and just facilitators. Just to give you a quick idea, and I'm going to go through this very quickly because I know we're short on time. We had high numbers. The last time that it was in person, we had 566 applications, and in 2020 we had 660 applications, but then we had to cancel that year and then shift over to go when COVID hit. So in 2021 we had 350 applications. We thought that was pretty good for a COVID year for a virtual competition. Some of the things that Steam Tank really promotes is teamwork, the ability to work with others and problem solve. I'm not going to go into this too much, but we really give the students opportunity to understand and define what technology is, and then to improve on their existing designs, whatever they choose to do. We also talk to teachers about what is an integrative STEAM design challenge. Not all teachers know how to run a design challenge, and there is a difference on how you actually facilitate the challenge. We've had some teachers actually run and control and pick the projects. No, that's not what we want. We want the students to become the entrepreneurs, the collaborators. Teachers can facilitate, and that's what we encourage them to do. And we encourage that the Steam Tank also promotes the 6 habits of mind. I really like the systems thinking part and the creativity, because when you blend these things together, you're going to get some outstanding results as long as you, as the facilitator, are hands off. It promotes human-centered design. We have empathy that's involved in this too. So the students are really thinking about the people, the animals, the ecosystems that it actually represents. They're thinking about unintended consequences and intended consequences that they have to think through their projects. It does create, and you'll see sustainability. Every single project, student design, concept, invention has to have environmental and climate change in mind. It can't be in the design challenge without having a component of that. And it is done through the lens of sustainability. Problem-based learning. The engineering design loop is big in this. The teachers can choose which way they want to facilitate this, but problem-based learning, as you know, is a really hands-off, student-centered, teacher-facilitated process. We also, a big component of this, since we are school boards, is that it informs and teaches board members what good integrative STEAM and design challenges look like in their classroom. It guides them to create policy and strategic plans and board goals that are centered on good STEM education. And we also train board members as well on what that looks like. So STEAM Tank is just not a design competition for students. It's also for the greater community of learners so that everybody is on the same page and some fundamentals of STEM and STEAM are learned. STEAM Tank, this is it in a nutshell. And I think I'm going to stop there because I'm almost out of time, and I might show you one or two more things that are important, but this is all the students get. They identify a real world problem, their situation that needs resolution. They modify an existing product to make it better, or invent something new that doesn't exist yet. And that's all they get. The teachers get a playbook, which is detailed instructions on how to facilitate it. We offer digital badges to students, and our judges and our finalists, our winners, and Explorer badges for the students who participate in professional development and training. Our judges are at the very, very center of STEAM Tank. They give so much guidance to students, it's amazing. To some of our judging panel that they represent, we've done a really, I think, a pretty good job of pulling together some other organizations to surround the students. And as you can see here, we did an assessment through the Pair Institute, and STEAM Tank actually, with the survey that we did, had it ranked higher than the national average for a STEM and STEAM program. And so we were pretty happy with the results. We have more to do. I will end on that note, and I will put some of these links in the chat. I hope I didn't go over the 5 minutes, but I'm pretty sure I did. So my apologies for that. And we can go into more questions later on when we do some breakouts. I'm happy to share more details. There are more details about STEAM Tank, but I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. And I'm assuming now we are moving to Jenny. Ruiz.
Yeah, my turn. I do need permissions also to share.
Yeah.
And there we go. All right. I want to share with you this screen. All right, so can everybody see see the sustainable and scalable STEM?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Why is it wandering around my screen like that? Do you guys see that? That is so strange. Okay. I have a mirrored second screen over here, and I think it's trying to crawl over to the second screen.
Yeah, right now we're good watching the supporting learning.
The INSL is the International STEM League, and it's interesting that we started out in one woman's classroom in Georgia in the United States and grew from there because people were intrigued by the concept that long ago of getting down and dirty, getting your hands on a project using inquiry-based learning, and grew to other teachers in that town and then across the state of Georgia and then through the East Coast and then across the country. And now we are, 25 years later, we have partnerships with the United Nations through the African Renaissance Diaspora Network. We're partnered with Kucheza Gaming in Nigeria. We have worked with the India STEM Alliance, although given COVID, we've kind of had some difficulty dealing with some of our Indian partners recently, but we are working with Design Sprint programs through the United Nations and through the embassies. We essentially are building a platform that is pre-K to pro with STEM. And that is all about building scalable programs that people can use that build this relationship with math starting at pre-kindergarten. We need to grab them very, very early. They need to be super comfortable with data, with problem solving and relationship building all the way through to the goal, which is to launch the next generation of global problem solvers. We're not looking for a small goal. It's a big one. But I think that's really where we're all headed. And we support that learning with strong foundations in mathematics. And you'll hear me say math a lot, and data. And if that word math scares you, then if it's a trigger word, that's exactly why we do it. Because it should be a happy word. You should be thinking a lot about math and about data if you're talking about STEM. And boosting those, we say 21st century tech and communication skills. We say that 21st century thing a lot, but what does that really mean? And to us, it means making sure that none of it is scary. That despite coming from, like the students that we worked with in Dominican Republic, are not from high-tech neighborhoods. And in fact, a lot of them don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have mobile tablets and that kind of thing to use. We need to make sure that as providers, we're giving those kinds of experiences to every kid that we work with. So they all start from a decent platform. And the relationship building to us is all about mentors and the networking. So our mentors are extremely important. For example, Terry mentioned in the beginning NSBE, a National Society of Black Engineers, has a junior program, and we will be working with about 3,500 elementary students in their SEEK program this summer. And it'll be a mix of virtual and hands-on in their Alexandria, Virginia complex. So we'll have 3,000 kids that are doing our programs online only, virtual only. And for something that is hands-on and design-oriented, that's a little tricky. So it's been a fascinating journey going through this whole COVID experience, turning programs that always were in person into these kind of hybrid experiences. Each of those kids will get a packet in the mail that has their print materials and their prototyping materials, and they'll be going through a mobile gaming design challenge with us. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Like the others, we really believe in pairing with industry mentors, because if you don't know where you're going in life, then you have no idea how to get there. So giving them partnerships with engineers, partnerships with tradespeople in the local areas, and building collective impact initiatives that encourage local industry in each different region where we're working to collaborate and get in there. Don't just throw some money at a problem. We want your time, we want your energy, we want your expertise. So our core philosophy being relationship building. Create the network, give the students the support they need, and we're going to provide a gateway, big, wide open door to STEM by making them comfortable all the way from pre-K through their life as pros. Some of the groups that we have worked with as our current entity and in working with 1080 Education, because we were the 1080 Foundation for years, and it got too confusing because people kept thinking that we were the same entity. And so we separated out a few years ago, 2 years ago now, I guess it's been already. But we work very closely with 1080 Education to provide that end of the year finals experience and to do fundraising for teams. And I also would like to show you a very quick video, because I think it kind of sets you up for some of these other things that I can talk to you about. One of the things that we did during COVID was transition to esports. And people ask me all the time, why in the world are you talking about esports? Well, besides the fact that your kids are talking about it, the numbers show that 78% of students that are in the middle school age groups, while they may not all play competitively gaming and esports, they do watch it. they interact with it on a regular basis. And we've always believed that what you want to do is use the theater of something. For example, it was radio controlled cars back in Beverly's classroom, little 16th scale cars. And it was using lathes to make pencils with the high school groups. And now we're looking at esports because we're all at home. We were sitting in our homes for 2 years. And I suddenly had to find a way to get all of my hands-on kids hands-on online. And Iracing made the most sense. So the first esport program that we got involved with was Iracing, partly because it is extremely physics-oriented. They have done an exceptionally good job of making it realistic and real life. It's a simulation game rather than just a play game. But it lets you get in there and do all of the team building, the entrepreneurial stuff. You get to do your branding, everything. And you get to race cars. Now, the deal was, once we got into the program and started trying to create this iRacing, we realized you couldn't find the wheel and pedal sets. They're nowhere. The chips that come from Taiwan were impossible to get. And so we want to make sure that our kids can log in no matter where they're learning and still be able to do our design projects and design programs. So we had them create their wheel and pedal setups from scratch. It was a Frankenstein project the first year, but after that, now we have kits that you can actually buy with the Arduino or microbit boards or whatever, and prototyping materials. But essentially, this first one that I want to share with you very quickly is our launch of an esports program. It's for middle and high school. And after I do that, I'll back it up and talk to you a little bit about how we got to the middle school level and some of our other esports programs. But it's the Student Innovation Challenge. We connect academics to esports. We do not necessarily provide the gaming. That's up to you. Your kids are going to game. They're going to play whatever they want to play. What we're going to provide is the excitement and the design and the STEM. So let me run this. We do not need the sound. It is extremely loud. There we go. Dalton Kellett is the IndyCar driver that has helped us develop this project. He, in fact, tested the first custom DIY setup, and he has been extremely integral in being an online personality that helps us with the programming. So our kids design and prototype a wheel and pedal set, which Dalton did and premiered it at the Homestead race on iRacing. They calibrate so that they get to a connection between the hardware and the software. We're making them giving them a comfort level. And then they use their DIY or they switch to off the shelf. And then they get to do all the competitive racing that you like to do when you're gaming. That is what we look at in terms of project building. And I will end it with esports and gaming is an exceptionally good role-playing and gaming and relationship building activity because it is teams oriented, and it gives us an opportunity connecting with students to help them build their academic skills, help them build their teamwork, but we also get to address math and problem solving and entrepreneurship and critical thinking and social skills and all those other soft skills that we find so important. So I will turn it back over to my partners.
Hi. All right, we've got it. I wanted to put the survey up there, so I want to make sure that in the next 10 minutes, I think maybe we use the survey to get everyone's feedback. I'll go ahead and put the survey in the chat, but I think there's a question here from Jim. So one is a varied experiences in the virtual piece. So I'm going to quick share a video as I just say something. I mentioned in the pitch that our team actually has tried to get innovative as possible. We've actually become a little broadcast studio. So I'm going to share with you a quick video just as I talk. Everybody can see the little video?
Yes.
All right. This is actually an app that we built. So you may have noticed from the screen earlier that one of the programs our teams work in is the Student Racing Challenge. And this is also an answer to your question, Jim, about the underrepresented groups. Really, the power of the Student Racing Challenge is, you saw the images earlier, the kids are on a racing team. So they're using that 10 scale RC car. Well, at home, it was a little bit difficult, as Jeannie, you mentioned, to work with kids. And frankly, going forward, it's hard to have kids travel and come and do that kind of thing. So we actually created an app, and this is our 2 team members down here, Anthony and Nelson, where students at home all over the country, or in China even, are sending us their data. So they're doing the work at home, they're gathering the data, which Jeannie also mentioned, and I think John, super important. They're gathering a lot of data. So they're using that math skill, the digital, data fluency. They're sending us their race data, and we are actually importing it into this simulation. So these are actually cars that represent teams all over the country. So this is just one of the ways that we really tried to get innovative and help the kids continue to do the work that they're doing, come together, in groups of 5 when possible, and yet feel they're still connected to the team nationally. And the reason it also addresses your underrepresented question is that, it's not your robot. It is a robotics. The kids also use microbits and Arduinos to program these vehicles. That's the autonomous vehicle program and even the drone program that we run. But you can start with an RC car and racing. And frankly, that really attracts the fun of this. If you saw the live images earlier, an audience that is not attracted to the robotics and does not see themselves as the engineer. They can see themselves as the person who comes up with the brand, does the marketing, does the project management, does something related to the car, the mechanic, the designer, the driver. So these students, and that's one of the reasons it has grown to be the largest program that NSBE offers in a hands-on capacity at these conventions, because it really, really speaks to these students who are typically underrepresented and don't see themselves in other programs. So I'll hand the mic over to someone else if you want. And I'm going to put the survey in the chat. So even if you aren't on the WebEx and you're watching via Zoom or YouTube, I hope you'll actually vote. What do you think is the most important? Jeannie or John, do you want to address John's questions or Jim's questions?
Sure. About the underrepresented students.
Yeah, he put 2 questions in the, you can't see the video, only green. Could you guys not see the video of the simulation running?
Yes. Yes.
You could see it. Okay, I'm sorry. You know what, Alyssa, I put in the chat, I put 3 video links. One of them is to the simulated race. That's what I was trying to show. So you can pop over there and see that. So yeah, Jeannie, there's a question in here from Jim about underrepresented groups and also the virtual. I think most of your presentation was addressing the virtual.
Yeah, because that's what we've all been obsessed with over the last 2 years. The thing is, we start our students out with a program called STEAM Start at kindergarten through 2nd grade, and it's design oriented with scrap materials. So everything that we do, I can provide a kit for you, but we've made it so that you can go classroom dumpster diving and do all of your design projects, because I've got kids who are literally in Nigeria. So they do not have the classroom bank of materials. And when they're working, a lot of times they're having to work on hotspots. They don't even have decent Wi-Fi. So most of the kids that we work with across the USA and around the world are in, I would say, underdeveloped school systems. They don't have the resources. We started out in rural areas. We worked in the mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains. Every kid that we work with should be able to do every program that we offer, no matter what their resources are. The only thing you need to be able to do as a teacher is log in and at least download the materials. What we're hoping now is that we've transferred everything can be done as a login. So you can log in, and then we say log in and then log off to get hands on, because everybody can log in, go directly through the programs, and then log off and do stuff. And it doesn't require any special materials kits. We encourage Frankenstein projects. For example, the middle school and the esports programs take apart something old to get the pieces out of it. And the videos we provide show you how to disentangle all those wires safely and reuse them to make something new. So yes, we firmly believe that every kid needs to be able to join in. And now even if you're in quarantine, you're able to just log into your into your classroom and continue.
So I could jump in here too to answer some of Jim, the two questions that Jim posted in the chat. And I want to kind of piggyback up what Janine just talked about, the Frankenstein kind of education with the scrap materials and the recycled materials. And so prototyping in Steam Tank for most of the teams during virtual was done with cardboard and glue sticks and just whatever they can find, and they would put together. We also did not have the expectations that they needed a polished product. Some of the best maker spaces that I've personally seen around the state are the ones where the classroom just had tables and tennis balls underneath the chairs and tables so they can move around, cabinets along the side, and a big pile of scrap stuff, and then not what I call the STEM and STEAM bling, all the high-end laser cutters and 3D printers. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If you have access to that, fabulous, great. But this project itself, what the students select, drives what they need. So if they need something high tech, they go and find it as the entrepreneurs. If they have the resources in the school, find it. If they need it, if they're home and virtual, they request and they find community assistance, whether it's from the teacher is still in the school. Like I know what we saw a lot in STEAM and when we were going through COVID is the teacher was allowed to go into the school, but there was no students. So they would actually provide some of the resources for have the students be picked up at the curb. And even 3D printers, if the students needed something to be 3D printed in their project. If not, the student was still relying on the teacher to provide some of those resources. So you can still do virtual. And of course they can connect. A lot of the teams just connected independently with each other, to continue the meeting, to continue brainstorming. The other one we'll talk about, and I want to address what Jim was talking about with students with disabilities, cultural differences. And what we have found that through an open-ended design challenge like Steam Tank, that the students had interest. We've had several students who had disabilities and would actually come up with inventions and solve problems based on their disability. And they would recruit others to help them as team members. Absolutely phenomenal to see. Same thing with cultural differences. The students were doing some empathy with cultural differences, and they were coming up with cultural solutions, not so much an invention, but a societal issues that they felt strongly about. So when you engage the student on something that's really meaningful and relevant to them, the achievement will follow and they will find a way, but you still have to support the students with resources when they need it and when they're able to ask. You just have to give them the flexibility. Steam Tank happens to be K-12, open to all public school students. It's not just for gifted and talented, and we've seen many students who were not GT students really step up because they believed in what they were doing and they had interest in it. I'll stop there.
Well, we've hit our 155, which I think is what the agenda has. We'd be happy to continue answering questions in the chat. But I think, Christo, I think it's your agenda, so.
If you want, I think you already answered the last question that was posted into the chat that I'm just going to read it. What prior knowledge do teachers need to implement this in their classrooms?
So I think I put in the chat that I think probably all of us would answer none. I mean, for 1080, we actually, we work with folks who are basically saying, I've been told to do STEM, I don't know what to do. The racing program is a great scalable entry point for them. And then we do one-day challenges where people show up and they have no idea what's even going on. So from our perspective, we expect the folks to not come in with any prior knowledge. The folks who do come in with some extensive project management, they do Lego, they just get a faster start than others. But we really know that to reach the full audience, to bring our vision to reality of really trying to help all students get involved in these topics, we have to be able to help those folks who have no prior knowledge at all.
Yeah, and I think that's one common thread that everyone can see in these programs, that as diverse as they are, they all saying, well, you tell me, right? Like you are the student, you are exploring this knowledge, you are designing, or you're trying to solve how to be faster than the other car that is going to beat you from China, right?
Yeah, yeah, and the projects and the enterprise and all the other, I show you the racing because that's the exciting part, but the students really own a business and they do a whole bunch of other things, which is there's a lot of overlap with the other panelists here as well.
See, I agree, Terry, that you don't need any prior knowledge. I mean, some teachers can potentially have some professional development about running projects like this, but you don't necessarily have to have prior knowledge, because some of the structure that you're showing everybody right now will guide them through the process. And if you're going to give ownership to the students, which we will when it comes to these hands-on learning projects, then they will take ownership and learn how to do it. And the teacher becomes part of the team. At least that's what I've seen with some of these.
Yes.
They are not the content experts in many, many cases. They might be a math teacher or whatever it is. They might even have the title of STEM and STEAM teacher, but that doesn't mean they know everything about whatever the students are going to select, right? Or all the technologies that you're showing today. So what I've found is that the teachers just have to really just have the courage to just say, I want in, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to see how this goes, given the guidance of the people who run the programs and the learning community that you surround the students with.
I have to say, I've spent many, many years on that last point. The hardest thing to do sometimes is to make teachers feel comfortable with subject matter experts, because for so many years, the two were separated. And back in the late 90s and all the way to today, I think one of the most important things that we've learned to do is to make teachers comfortable with being able to say, I don't know, I don't understand, and be comfortable that someone else in the room, an engineer or a scientist, does have those answers for the kids, but they're not very good at communicating them maybe, or maybe they are, but we can work together. And that is a bridge that is very difficult to create sometimes. I think probably everybody on this panel has had the experience of learning to create that bridge. And that is an experience that is valuable in any school system, because I'll tell you, most of those teachers out there haven't met the person that can make them comfortable in that situation yet. And we work very hard to make that happen.
I would also add that some of the same things, we talk about trying to get traditionally underrepresented groups in STEM and girls in STEM. It works the same with teachers. You have a lot of people who grew up just thinking that's not for them. I'm an artist. I'm a reader. I like literature. But I'm scared of math, and I'm scared of the word data. And the same techniques that we use to get girls involved and to get the underrepresented students involved also work to get teachers involved. And providing all the materials they need to feel comfortable and to feel like the expert is important, but it's also teaching them that you don't need to know all of this. The whole point of STEM is that you're learning, and you're going to fail. And that's a good thing. You collect more data the more you fail. And that's a huge message for teachers.
Great.
And on the final piece, you can take a look at the chat. Matthew, I'd love to talk with you offline. I'm sure the others would as well, but we're working with America Makes. If you look them up, they're really a DoD funded group on 3D printing. And we are generating for them a toolkit to introduce 3D printing to younger students. Also working with them on a 21st century guide to talent. So taking that all the way up to onboarding and retention and recruitment in the industry side. So, and to answer your question very quickly, no, we don't have a ton of experience of success with Arduinos and young students. We do with Arduinos in middle and high school. We use microbits with the younger grades, and we have a lot of real success using that. So I'd love to talk with you offline, just, to
And
continue
that's
that
why we have
conversation.
the breakout at the end, right? Like to
Great.
precisely we want to pursue these conversations because
Great.
they're really important for us. That's why we're giving that space at the end.
Perfect.
But again, because I'm trying to keep this on time and we need to move to the next one. So thank you very much to our panelists.
you.
Now we're going to be moving to a little break. It's really simple. I'm gonna post the link here for the raffle and giveaways, in which you can just go ahead and fill in your information. INSL is being really kind at giving us this certificate gift. So basically, you're gonna see this is really clear the raffle. We're gonna be announcing the winners at the end of the day in the second break. We're gonna be having one free Iracing membership code and one free INSL Iracing Teams digital classroom with 12 seats. It's going to make sense.
I'm telling you, we're gonna suck you people in. That we're gonna get you into this and get you on esports.
Right. So actually, if you want to be explaining this Student Innovation Challenge and what is this giveaway and so what are we going to have here? What are you explaining this to us?
Yes, it is the very first of our esports rollout, and you are invited to join us. It's a design and prototyping challenge that teaches systems thinking, and your kids are going to form an iRacing team. They will get online, learn how to go into our classroom, learn how to do prototyping of their own wheel and pedal set that then can be calibrated to the software on iRacing and used to actually drive a sim vehicle on a sim track. It's not going to drive very well, but that's the whole point. And then as you go through, you'll be able to level up and end up creating your own sim rig.
Thank you very much. So if you see, this is also in the agenda. You can just download if in case you want to see this flyer, you can just download it here. And here's the brief description of what is this item all about. So we're just gonna do a brief one more break, and I'm just reposting the giveaway for everyone to participate. As we're gonna start moving quite on time to my next item today.
And I want to thank the panelists who went first and at least clapped, because it's weird that you can't hear anyone clap for you when you're done speaking.
Yay! Hands on. Michelle is already joining me with a hands on. Thank you very much for all your time. And I will just take this time to just acknowledge that we have a really great participation today. We are now up to 32 people. And again, if there's some people that need the request, yes, the raffle is going to be receiving the permission, so people is going to be open to view it. And as we get into this thing, we already have some responses, and we are going to keep moving to my next item to present our next group. So today the way we structured this is first we were having this conversation with all of our STEM providers, and now we're going to be moving to a more particular discussion with the role playing and STEM. Because we also felt that it was necessary to have this conversation with experts, whether are researchers or participants doing this other type of collaboration when it comes to narrative, storytelling, and engaging kids with telling stories. Today we're going to be joined by two different groups. The moderator of the first group is going to be Miguel Basarrache. I'm going to be bringing him into the presentation in a little bit. And we're going to start the conversation with Michelle Rittenhouse and Ruiz Wells that also just joined us. So Miguel, if you want to start getting into this thing, I think we're in perfect time, a little bit 5 minutes before, but.
Okay, nice. Thank you, Cristo. Yeah, so actually, I'm very happy to open this second roundtable. In my case, I'm both a physicist and a philosopher, and also a role-playing games researcher. So for me, it's fascinating to know what you are doing about this innovating in teaching and learning of STEM. So in this roundtable, the panelists will talk about games, but not any games, the role-playing games. and we will see what role-playing games can tell us about these issues. So, should we start with the introductions, Crystal?
Yeah, we have enough time. Yeah, we should start with introductions. I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. So please allow me to introduce the first two panelists. We have Michelle Rittenhouse, playwright, producer, and creative director, Theater Arts and Technology program from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, where she developed a new major as a standalone or double major with other disciplines offered at the NJT. And her topic will be narratives and storytelling for storytellers. And the second panelist will be Lois Wells, artistic coordinator for the Joint Theater Program at Rutgers Newark, NJT, university lecturers at NJT, and currently he's developing a research center for applied improvisation at the NJT. His topic will be acting, improvisation, and differences with role-playing.
Hey. Hello, everybody. Thank you for
Hello,
having me
Michelle.
today. This is like my favorite subject in the world. Storytelling and how it comes about. One of the things that I always tell my students, and I have been a D&D player for a number of years, not presently, but yeah, and had a great DM, absolutely wonderful DM, and that's kind of the foundation for, that makes a good presenter. So there can only be one author to storytelling, and that author is a guide. And then all the characters that are within the storytelling world, each one separately has their own journey. And in that journey, they need to be guided by the main storyteller in a structure. And I've found working with engineering and design students over the years how to teach playwriting, I utilize the radical side of the brain for the creative endeavors and the logical side of the brain by giving them a structure. And the structure is something that actually is built within all of us. It's a natural structure of storytelling. And it literally comes in, excuse me, Aristotle, but it comes in 4 acts. And the introduction in the objective of the first act is to create the adventure. Where are the characters going to go? Who, what is the super objective of that event, adventure? And then you have what we call crossroad turning points. There are literally 3 crossroad turning points before you get to the end of the adventure. And those crossword turning points are, the first one is, the inner world of the characters. They discover something about themselves. The second crossword turning point is where they're trying to embark upon completing the task, but fail or learn something new. And then the next turning point is the failure, and then letting everything go until they get to the climax of the story or the end of the adventure. And then after that, the denouement, if you will, is, or the elixir, which I like to call it, the elixir is the result of it, the result of the entire adventure. And that's where they get their action points, or they figure out a magic wand way of getting back home again quickly and going back to the tavern and having a drink, or whatever they choose to do. Now, in this structure, I always have to go into the story of Gilgamesh, which is a Sumerian story that is in 12 tablets. And 3 of those tablets, 3, 3, 3, and 3, literally tell the story to immortality and what it is to be a human being. And that is the oldest story that we've ever found recorded. And it is the story that completes the philosophy of storytelling, you go into, well, for me, it's going into the Joseph Campbell, who, was an absolute genius in dissecting stories and where they come from and how and why they were told. Now, I get into a little of this with my students, but the whole point especially in D&D, is if the dungeon master or the storyteller actually has points of locations where the characters need to be at certain times in the story, and how they get there. That's something probably Lewis will talk more about. What they anticipate, the DM anticipates once those crossroads have been met and the end of it. Now, there is an unknown ending to D&D. That's what makes it so amazing. It's just like being a playwright, which I happen to be. I never know where my stories are going to land. And I can anticipate where they're going to land because that gives me a trajectory to follow. But when I get there or get closer, it's the characters that say, no, you're pushing me in this direction. I don't want to be over there. I want to be over here. And I'm going to take a different route to get to that crossroad. And so I'm always amazed that at the end, when I finish a first draft, and I think it's a good, solid first draft, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh my God, I never would have imagined I would have hit this ending. And it's far deeper and more profound and full of humanity, much more than I had anticipated than when I started out. But the super objective was met or not met, but it was made. And that's the whole point of storytelling, and particularly in role playing. So I just want you to know that you gotta let the characters lead, but you have to create the crossroads for them so that they can choose how to get to each one of those crossroads and then land at the very ending. And if the author doesn't know what the ending is, or what the author hopes the ending is, then the author loses control. They lose control of the story, the evening, the game. And that's pretty much what I've got to say.
Thank you very much, Michelle. That was
You're welcome.
amazing.
Thank you very much. I suppose
Okay, I suppose it's my
yeah,
turn.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my name is Louis Wells. I'm a theater director by training, but I have a number of years of experience as an improviser. And that's the framework in which I'll be speaking with you today. So my background is traditional theatrical training. And while I was doing that training, I also performed as an improviser for many years. And then I ended up at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, a STEM school, as an artist. What could I offer this school? Well, of my entire background, improvisation seems to be the key to it. And it's because there are several reasons, but one, asking an engineer to be a really brilliant Hamlet, which we have done, and he did a fine job, it's rare, it's difficult. But asking that same engineer to perform in an improvised scene, you could get somewhere with that. Improvisation requires intelligence. Improvisation requires curiosity. And if you have those things, even if you're not a traditional performer, you can do this art form. So what is improvisation? Improvisation, theatrical improvisation, is getting up in front of an audience of people and making up a story in real time with no preparation about that specific story. I also engage in something that was mentioned earlier, that I am the director of the Center for Applied Improvisation at NJIT. What is applied improvisation? Well, applied improvisation is using the techniques of improv that performers like myself have learned over years of training and experience, and teaching some of those techniques to non-performers in order that they can benefit from what I've benefited. So for example, storytelling techniques. Scientists are really brilliant at, and they're really great at a lot of things. But I think one thing that the pandemic reminded us all of was that we can create processes, and we can create the brilliant medicine that we've gotten, and the vaccines, and all of that. We can create all of that. But sometimes the most basic thing that we need our scientists to do is communicate. And the communication, as we've witnessed over the last 2 years, has been really rough. And I don't entirely, I'm not blaming anybody for this. This is just a thing that has happened. And here is where improvisation can help. Improvisation can teach people, scientists as well, storytelling. Storytelling is it's like an invasive idea that's there whether we want it or not. We are using it whether we like it or not. And therefore, we need to learn how to harness this information. So to give you an example of how storytelling can help and hurt, by the way, I'm going to ask you to engage in a game. This is an improvisation exercise. No one is performing. You're all muted. We can't see you anyway. Please, it's okay. I promise you're going to be okay. Every time people hear improv example, they go, oh no, yeah, I know. It's okay. You're okay. I can't even see you. It's okay. All right. Good, great. It's a really simple game. It's called I Am a Tree. It gets at the kind of thinking an improviser gets into that is absolutely exceptional and at the top of their intelligence. Improvisers, as they move through their scene in real time, they are gathering information as they go. And then they are learning to synthesize this information into something that looks coherent, so that by the end of it, it looks like it was all just perfectly planned. So this is a form of synthesis. Here's how we exercise our ability to synthesize information. It is a game called I Am a Tree. Okay? And so I want you to, I'm going to give you two things, two different items. And then I want you to say to yourself, no one's going to hear you, I promise. I want you to imagine how these could be combined to make them both make sense. So we have a violently crashed car. We have a empty bottle of Jack Daniels. These things seem to be unrelated, but the human brain is designed to make order out of chaos. So all of you came to a conclusion about this. All of you came to an idea of what would have caused these two things to go together. Now, those two were kind of easy because we have a lot of stories like that. We hear that story, unfortunately, way too often, right? But this also gets at the dark part of storytelling, because the other reason that you got that right was because of the bias of the selection bias, which is a wonderful tool, but it's also could be a dangerous tool, right? Selection bias means that you're only given a certain amount of information, and therefore you come to a conclusion based on the limited information you have. Wonderful for storytelling, can be very difficult in a scientific context. We have to be aware of both. We have to be aware of it as an awesome tool that will help us communicate our complex ideas to people, right? But we also have to be aware that the people we are speaking to are being worked on in a selection bias kind of way. The term that we use for an improvisation for this kind of thing is called circle of expectation. And so I filled up our circle of expectation with two ideas and then asked you to come to a conclusion based on that. So that's an example of a simple exercise that you can learn to engage in. I teach students to do this on a regular basis because it teaches them to synthesize, and that increases their ability to be creative. It increases their confidence in being spontaneous. It allows them to deal with verbally on stage or in a presentation. It allows them to deal with the various interruptions that might come to disrupt their thoughts and their ideas. So it's a tool to sharpen their minds. And that is what I would submit to you applied improvisation can be and why it's useful for your students. Storytelling is a container for ideas. Let's make sure those ideas are good. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you very much, Luis. So, Cristo, should we go with the next?
Yeah, I'm going to move on to
presentation?
the next one. Just a small housekeeping announcement. It seems that some people are having issues to access the form. Don't worry, I'm manually adding you into the form. So you just send me your email and I put your name. You're already into the form. Don't worry. Some people don't have the access to NJT or whatever was the issue. Do not worry. Just send me your email. I will add you into the raffle. Your name is there. We got you. So right now, then we're going to move into the second part of this discussion, where we're going to be starting with our first presenter, Edgar Meritano, from the Universidad Autónoma Metropolitana Azcapotzalco, where he researches digital media, teaches visual culture and scenography. He has been an invited professor for the Vancouver Film School and the Shanghai University in recent years. And today he's going to be talking about mathematical modeling of reality. Our second presenter for this second section will be Ricardo Morales Carvajal from CONACYT UIBC. He's a professor investigator of the Cátedras CONACYT at the Universidad Autónoma de Baja California, where he investigates role-playing games for mathematics education. His background is as an electronic engineer in Mexico. He has a PhD in biomedical engineer, and his topic will be role-playing games in education. So we're going to start with Dr. Meritano.
Hello. Greetings. Well, I am starting my presentation. Let me see how I share this. You can share countless unless the host.
Daniel, if you please grab Edgar access to share.
Yes, I did.
Thank you. You should be receiving it in a second.
Okay, cool. So here we go. Oh, I want to sorry. Open preferences. I am having some troubles in order to present this. Google Chrome. Okay. So here it is. Yes, sure. Good.
Now it's coming, and yes, now we're seeing your PowerPoint.
Yeah, good. Well, as I have said, I am a mathematician. I study science and its relation with another science and reality. So mathematics are, of course, science. Okay. So here it is, Williams Blake's painting about God making the creation, and also God doesn't draw any straight lines. He does circles, as we know. So here we have the assumptions. Well, mathematics are the language of nature, okay? And everything can be represented with numbers. Then we have a hidden structure. Numbers are all around us and can be used to represent reality, of course. Numbers represent abstractions of the actual world. And maths include in their whole concept the logic idea of proof and the empiric idea of the nature exact laws, particularly about space. So, in order to illustrate this, here we have the Durero's chalice, which is in fact one of the first renders in history. So we can watch here the mathematical modulation of reality in this Durero's chalice, which illustrates the point. So here we are going further. Math and harmony. Thus, Pythagoras found an intrinsic relation between harmony and math in music, thus understanding the beauty itself in numbers and patterns. We understand the beauty in the patterns, you know, and the patterns are of course mathematical. And then with his general theorem, he managed to translate space to numbers. Okay, so this is a general hypothesis about our digital era. Renaissance retakes the mathematical idea of representation, particularly Fibonacci and the golden sequence. Again, with music, it is really, really interesting, and then later permitting the other arts. Thus, we might trace the digital era, not a computer era, not from Alan Turing, but from Fibonacci himself, reality modeled by math. Well, what do we have with role-playing? Okay, these are postulates about role-playing games and math. I have this quote, Pythagoras quote about mathematics, which says, "This is part of the key of the structure of nature itself. Role-playing games are a form of art. It involves, as other arts, a mathematical abstraction and modeling of reality. Yet, reality in RPG is fictional, but the math is real. The space in RPG fiction is mathematical, modeled and represented. Although we know RPG math modeled reality is fictional, the experience is real. Okay, we have a real experience through a mathematical modeled reality. In its math, it is math which provides the explicative principle and foundation of reality in RPG. Oh, it comes with us because we are researching about ontology in RPG games. What are RPG games? What are their explicative principles and foundations? And it could be the math itself. Well, conclusions. It is not about the sequence. It is about the syntaxes of the numbers, says Max Cohen in the movie P, The Order of Chaos. We play RPGs in order to solve an algorithm, which provides experience. An RPG finds its meaning through math, but it is not about the sequence of numbers or the algorithm itself. It is about the syntax in the algorithm, which lies in the RPG essence. This is it.
Thank you very much, Oscar. I'm getting used now to the clapping on the, and that is going to be actually a really great segue to our next presenter, Ricardo Morales. Welcome, Ricardo. Welcome to the event. And he's going to be talking again about role-playing games in education.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. Hi to everybody. I'm very glad to be here and to talk about this. Well, I will try to talk slower because sometimes I get excited and then, well, it's like a train. I talk very much, very faster. Okay, one of the principal problems on the universities, most in the STEAM area, is that the students most of the time doesn't feel that they like mathematics. Edgar, for example, he just showed the beauty of mathematics, how it can be applied, and people that we already know mathematics, we love it, and we don't need anything extra for say, yes, mathematics I like more. No, when you know the reality of mathematics, it's beautiful. But when you are a teacher and you are in the university, there's a problem sometimes because some students that arrive to the university, they arrive with the idea of mathematics is bad. No, mathematics is going to be a headache. I can't do it. Well, that's the reason that I try to make an innovation. Other people in other areas, in other countries, already use this kind of innovation that make a combination of RPG game with mathematics. The idea is that the students, they can appreciate mathematics in a different way. If you change the background, we can say the background where they are learning mathematics, they can see the useful that it can be mathematics, because sometimes mathematics is they are very abstract. But when you involve role-playing games, you can immerse the students in some kind of atmosphere more attractive to the students. So I will share something very short I hope I learned this.
Yeah, it's coming your screen.
Okay, so if I'm not sure if sharing the
Yep, yeah, we can see your adventure school.
okay, adventure. Okay, so I created this called Adventure School. The idea, well, increase the motivation of the students so they can learn mathematics. I applied this in University Universidad Autónoma de Baja California, in Mexico, Campus Mexicali. Well, the background is a fantasy world. Me as a teacher describe a fantasy world where there's problems and the students have to help the situation. Every student has a character sheet. Here is an example. Well, this is almost at the end of the course, almost filled. In the left side is a experience points. So you can see how it is. In the other side, in the background of the character sheet is the rules about what are the abilities that they can have, how they can get more XP, what can exchange, and what are the penalties if they are, making some kind of shits, well, doing wrong things. So in adventure school, students choose a profession. Every profession has special abilities. Some professions allows to use a calculator. Others allows you to use the cell phones, and others allows you to go and visit another team world, because this is working in teams, in small groups. Students resolve mathematics problems, but not any kind of mathematics problems. There are monster problems, this we are, well, sorry, here I am applying adventure school on calculus classroom. So you see there are ghosts, there are also werewolves that are attacking, and you need to apply a mathematics divisions algorithms to kill the wolf. There also you use a mathematics trajectory to know where are going to fall the stars. Also, there are a lot of enemies. The results that I get that in this case there was some motivation. I follow different groups and semester A, B, C, and I want to make well, I want to appreciate, well, that you appreciate the last point. You know, the the left, no, sorry, the blue point correspond to a normal course without adventure school in the semester C. But in the semester C, I apply adventure school in the red spot, and and the and the motivation on the marks on the students increase a little. So the difference between the group A and the group B, the difference get less. There was, well, the gap between them was less. So, well, conclusion, the goal was to increase the motivation, and it was doing almost 92% of the students that I applied adventure school. There's almost like 100 students. They accepted. They say, it's very cool. I like it. I wish it could be used, that this kind of technique can be used on another class. And well, also this kind of gaming activities, giving X points, increasing levels, help the students to see mathematics not like the final goal. The point is, with these activities, the students see the mathematics like a tool that helps to get XP to increase the level so the students can help to can have a more advantage in the classroom to do another stuff. And well, anything. Here's thank you, and well, this is my email, but well, another of my emails.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. Thank you very much. We are now just moving into a general Q&A for the 4 panelists. Miguel, if you can help us also with that. I just see one question here for Jesly Pumas, which is, for these areas, how is emergence and plotting out the SARPAT dealt with in planning and the scripted techniques? So to our 4 panelists, if you want to answer simple questions like that.
So, Cristo, I didn't hear you. Where can I help you?
Oh, just leading the conversation. Leading the
Yeah, of course.
question.
Okay. Yeah.
I think this question actually is quite hard.
Yeah, actually, right? Well, I'm not
To
sure if
make it
one.
easier,
Yeah. Okay.
so you talked about modeling, storytelling, and improv. Those are all, from a DM writer standpoint, we tend to plot too much. But real world and D&D, role playing often is emergent because it's co-designed. So I was wondering if all of you had techniques for dealing with that emergent property of storytelling and recognizing something new in a model, because, sometimes modeling displays things that you didn't plan for or couldn't see. So, or when you're in a classroom, you create a character sheet and the students start writing their extra things on the bottom, like that emergence of things you hadn't planned for in each of your experiences.
I can at
Share, please.
least,
Yeah.
yeah, I can at least address, from a storyteller's point of view. Like I said, there are landmarks or locations or short-term achievements that were needed to be made in order to continue the journey. And how they get to those landmark achievements, what the result is at those landmark achievements, is what's going to build character and XPs, your experience points. But at least in my experience, the DM has managed to finesse at least to the next level or the next act, if you want to call it that, in a 4-act structure. And some may come out, damaged and maybe even lose XP points, and some may gain, but they're all going to have the opportunity within that act to get some sort of a magical potion or something that's going to help them get through or come out of into the next act another tool, because the DM or the storyteller understands what the obstacles are in the next act. So if there are prizes in the first act that they can win, they can use them in the second act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been my experience.
Unless your DM is mean like Christo and he just expects you to die.
It's also an outcome, right? It's also an outcome.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my DM's objective was not to get everybody killed. It was to get them through one way or another to the end of the story. And when you kill off a character, I don't think you're doing I think there needs to be some sort of, my DM also had an extra character, kind of a catalyst that would pop in when needed. And that's the fractal of it, that +1 factor. And that +1 factor is what would save the characters to get them to the end of the story.
Edgar, you have the hand raised.
Oh, yes. Well, adding to what Michelle has said, I will say that it is about solving the algorithm. Okay, so the any role-playing game adventure states an algorithm that needs to be solved. mathematical algorithm that needs to be solved. If any of the characters brings chaos to this algorithm, then a new algorithm must be drawn in the act. Okay, in the very moment there will be another spiral dust fractal of the venture in order to represent a new algorithm to be solved by this little chaos added to the numbers. So I think it is the contingency mathematical area.
Thanks, Edgar. Luis, please.
Not so much speaking from a role-playing perspective, but from an improvisation perspective and a collaboration perspective. In improv, our guiding principle is a collaborative idea called yes and you've probably heard this in lots of other contexts. And it seems to me that in this context in which we're responding, you want to plan, but you have to allow any kind of in any kind of thing you plan for your students or for in a role-playing thing, it seems to me that you have to allow some flexibility for the collaborators you've surrounded yourself with to riff and to expand on what you've offered them. And so in improvisation, this principle is called yes and, meaning I make an offer, let's go to a cafe, and your response is yes, and then we will drink coffee, which is obvious. But the point being that you allow your collaborators space to present to you. And so it seems to me in the same storytelling world, that is something we are always striving to get.
Yeah. Thanks, Luis. Ricardo, please.
Yes, I want to tell that in this case, you have to be like a teacher, you have to be flexible to the idea of the students, because sometimes the students get an idea very different that one I was expecting. So sometimes I have to say to my ego, say, okay, I let it go. I see your resolution. I see, okay, it's not the solution I wanted, but it has a logic. So I get, okay, you got the point. It's appreciated. It's very important. This thing about flexible, being flexible as teacher, like at DM, even in class or even in a play area. That's all.
Thanks, Ricardo. Jenny, please.
Yes. So I'm sitting here taking massive notes because I was D&D player, role player, you name it, I loved it, which is kind of why I have grabbed onto this whole esports gaming thing for kids, right? Get them in the games, that's where they are. But my question is, I'm listening to you thinking, okay, so your storytelling scaffolding has all the same hurdles as we have designing a project-based learning platform, right? And when we do that, we let the data and the math models drive the outcomes, and may even redirect the project. So your students end up on the entirely different path, like you're saying. So the question is, would you use a rubric in world building for your students in the same way that we use a rubric for project building? Or do you just really let the story go off on a massive tangent? I'm quite like, when you're doing the world building, are you using a rubric to make sure they're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of where you want them to end up, or do you really just let it go off the wall?
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, maybe I can give you a short answer and also contribute to the discussion, because I had lately somehow, I mean, a kind of a crisis. Let's say the Carl Beeman, the Nobel Prize responsible of the experimental fabrication of the Bose-Einstein condensate. We have a meeting with him talking about college education and STEM. And one thing he told us was that in his experience and his measurements after 10 years, he noticed that jokes, for example, in the classroom were bad for the students, because that diverted their attention from the main topics. But then it turned out that as a role player, I usually tend to use jokes and to build up a narrative in the classroom in order to create meaning for the students, to make them see that the topics we are studying, the topics I am teaching to them, they are not something weird or outside the world, but that has a reason. There is a reason to study that. No, and I would say that in this sense, of course, for example, in my teaching in the college level, I have a script because we need to cover some topics, just as it happens in role-playing games. There is some kind of a script, but then here comes this flexibility, this kind of improvisation where you have to adapt all the outcomes, the different outcomes in this analogy, from the characters that want to do something completely different and from the students that are devising alternative ways. And I think that the key point here is the creation of the creation of meaning. No, so it's meaningful not because it's in a book or because someone else, an authority, says so. It's meaningful because we are finding the meaning itself together in the classroom. No, so that will be my perspective, according or alongside the role-playing games.
And I think one point that is really important to add to this conversation that all of the presenters were bringing is this idea that whether you're acting, improvising, teaching a math class, or throwing the monsters, the big difference in role-playing game is the dungeon master cannot do the happening without the player. It's a co-creation. The conversation only happens when the both of us are listening at each other.
Mhm.
So sometimes when a teacher is designing a rubric, he doesn't have a kid, but he's planning his entire life and education, right? But he's making assumptions because he doesn't have the kid in front of him to answer the problem of, did you get this thing? Oh, no, you totally didn't get it. Because there's also metacognition problems, right?
Yeah.
Like if I don't know what is a tarrasque, I tell you, and you see a big tarrasque coming to you. All of the role players know what is a tarrasque, and they're like, oh, yeah, they're going to die. But people that don't know that, they lack the construction of, well, should I be afraid? What is that? Because there's this level of metacognition, right? That when we are designing rubrics, we don't have the voice or the audience of who is that we're doing there, right? Which is this additional level that for role playing and storytelling, that's why, in creating your playwright is similar problem. You create a playwright, but you don't really know what is going to be the ultimate representation of it on a theater with the audience. And you're happy if they're like 80% close to what you imagined it was going to be the scene that you described, right? But that's lays the creation of the director, that he comes and say, well, this picture that has been painted, well, but I want to put it with these other colors, right? But also now the actors are making their own decisions because they're alive. And then they say the joke and nobody laughs. And everywhere all of the actors are like, up, it happened again. We get to the moment and nobody laughed, right? Well, you need to adjust, and hence the storytelling is structure. That role-playing games, that's for us, that is so common because no matter what the character is saying is going to do, no matter what the dungeon master wanted to happen, you still need to roll a die. And that's something that also doesn't exist on other structures, right? Like the character says, I'm going to jump. Well, yeah, let's see if you can jump.
And all of that follows the math because you either have the abilities or the experience or the point. Okay. So it's still the same in role playing then. It's still follow the math.
Yes. Because we're trying to solve the algorithm, right? And it's kind of like to the point of Ruiz, right? If doesn't matter how open is improvisation, what are the rules? If you say something, my only answer is yes and. So if I don't say yes to what you put me, then I'm not playing the game. If for whatever reason you call me and I say like, okay, we're gonna play this, and Luis' answer is no, we're not gonna do that, he loses. Because the rule is you have to say yes. So once we get that game, I'm gonna say, hey Luis, give me your ticket to go to Barcelona. Because I know he has to do that. So I'm like, so it's part of the convention. So we do have the structure in a sense, right? Um, I don't know if anybody else have any other questions. I think we're getting I don't know, Miguel, if you have a question. I have a lot of really interesting questions for what Ricardo was presenting, but
Yeah, of course. But actually, Jenny, you put a comment in the chat, right? About this?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. I just wasn't sure if it was going anywhere.
yeah, no, but
Ah.
we already answered that question.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'm not sure if someone else has a question or comment. I mean, to end the story, I realized that I don't agree with the Nobel Prize. So, but the STEM education, but yeah, no, forgive me.
And I think it's kind of at
I
least
have to
important
throw
here.
in here, if I have
Yeah.
just a second. I'm probably the oldest person sitting here today, and I've been at this a long time. I have never been involved in a more fun STEM conversation than this. I mean,
Thanks.
it's beautiful. And I have to say, I was into one-act plays and role playing, and I've done I've done a lot of the things. I've never played a video game in my life, but this is fascinating, and I'm a mathematician at heart, so wow. I think there's something here in this group that I've literally never come up against before, and we need to spread it around. So excellent. I'm glad to meet all of you.
Thank you very much, Beverly. And as we say, that's because we're actually doing
Beautiful.
STEM, right? It's the power of STEM. It's bringing to convergence from all of the points. And
Well,
so,
if I may, this is the reason why some people are using the term STEAM with the A for arts and design
Yeah.
to get the kids into a creative mindset, not just to innovate, but to innovate creatively using imagination and some of the things you're talking about. So I'm hoping that everybody listening looks at that way and says, wow, you could use the role playing, the story, all of the creativity, the gaming, esports, all of that as a form of, really high level imagination and creativity.
To that point, one more sentence here. We wrote papers years ago, our engineering partners in our team, and our point was that science and STEM and STEAM, these are performing arts. And just like playing a violin or anything else, they take practice. And that one of the most important things we can do is build a practice league. So look at it as a performing art. And, one of our early partners went to Carnegie Mellon, and half the university was arts and half was engineering. Well, he was engineering, but he also worked in the arts. And that's been a driver for our group for a lot of years. So this is a perfect fit for the way that we think you need to be practicing STEM and STEAM. So yes, exactly to your point.
and Luis, and then Edgar, I think you wanted to participate.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that, Michelle and I, as artists, I don't want to speak for Michelle, but one of the things we've tried to build at NJIT was to use the brilliance of our STEM thinkers at NJIT to share their work with artists. From my perspective, bringing the A into STEM isn't just about making scientists better communicators, it's also making artists better artists and better thinkers about the world that they're trying to reflect. And all of the great innovations of art, from realism in plays, which was derived from Darwin and Freud's theories, right? These did not come out of like just their intuition. They were responding to the science of their time. And Michelle and I started a project where we were teaching high school art students cutting edge science to inspire them so that they would see the world in a more accurate and fulfilled way. So please don't take me as an artist coming here going, we need to add more art to this. It's really both directions. It's definitely both directions. They are in conversation with each other.
Yeah, just as a quick comment, yeah, I totally agree with you. Actually, right now I'm teaching a college subject called Art and Science, which is multidisciplinary. And I have people from philosophy, engineering, and so on. And it's a challenge, but it's awesome, no? Because as one that is in between humanities and science, as in my case, no, it's a perfect chance to see that you can draw inspiration from everywhere to enrich every subject actually. You know?
And Edgar and Ricardo, if you want to just also join the conversation, we got still four minutes.
Yeah, I be very precise. Well, I think the nexus, the link between arts and mathematics are in fact harmony, because mathematical harmonies are beauty, and beauty are aesthetical in a Platonic sense. So there you have a philosophy, arts, and science.
And Ricardo?
If I
I
can,
want to
just
say,
jump in again. Just a quick story. There was a high school that was running, a very high level technology classes, and they were running robotics, but they weren't getting the students in the arts classes to come into that. And so what they did is they created, and I forget the name of it, but it was the students who were into the arts, the theater arts, to actually learn the controls and lighting and audio to a play. And now that got them into the robotics and to the STEM connections, blending the art. So even though those kids would not take the robotic courses, they were taking the theater courses and then they were learning the technology and the robotics and the control technology. They learned it, but they learned it in their domain, not going out of their comfort zone and going into a robotics course that had nothing to do with their interest.
Yeah. And Ricardo, if you now can just.
I want to say that art is involved in mathematics engineering because, for example, I asked to the students that they create a 3D model of showing mathematics, but creating a small history. They create a small history with Mario Bros. And even they make a video record about that, explaining some of the mathematics concepts in each station of this 3D model. And they have to make also improvisation, like Luis comment, and this creativity to create the sculptures to make a visual attractive. So I think that this thing about mathematics, art, all this thing about the STEAM is involved with the role games and all that we as teachers permit. Yes, we permit to the students that go ahead, say, okay, go ahead. You have like a sandbox. You can do anything, and well, in the moment that we get structural and say, no, you have to do only this, you cannot do anymore, then we are losing the students and the interest and the motivation.
Yeah.
Thank
That's a great segue to the last participation, Jenny, because we have like 3 minutes, so we need to move. So Jenny, if you have your
Okay, I will make it super quick. We had talked earlier about getting kind of the disenfranchised students more into STEM, and I think this intersection of art and science is absolutely how we've managed it over the years. We've had an 87% diversity, so students who are traditionally underrepresented in STEM, and we've had 47% female participation, which is pretty phenomenal. But it's because we have always drawn them in with showcasing and with the marketing and with the design aspects, and we trick them into getting into the STEM because once they're in, then they have to do the mechanical stuff and the electrical stuff, and they find out that in talking about it and sharing that with an audience, they had to understand it, and maybe they liked it, and if they did, then all of the art and the communication has actually drawn them into something they never thought that they'd be interested in to begin with. And to end up on your topic, I firmly believe that we will be incorporating some of the role-playing concepts in some of the esports online classes. I've got Fortnite Warcry Challenge and the legendary wearables and the role-playing aspect of it, I think, is just irresistible now. So
Yep.
you got me.
Well, just to then bring this to a conclusion for this second roundtable, I want to thank all of our presenters for sharing their experiences in discussing these simple aspect, right? Communication leads to a language, and language, it doesn't matter what is the language, you're still communicating. So whether it's mathematical language, body like body language, either cultural language, are still part of this overarching category, which is communication. And we all trying to solve this same problem, which is how we communicate better, what makes us more efficient at communicating and delivering the message. Whether it's trying to kill the dragons or trying to learn a topic, is this interaction with the subject of the topic, which is telling stories, right? So thank you very much. Our round of applause just virtual to everyone. Thank you. We're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is a really simple one. We are going to just get into the raffle winners and closing remarks. Just to keep it with the conversation, I actually roll a die to determine which is our winner, and we got a 4 on the. There were 9 participants, 10 was a re-roll. We rolled the die, and Jackie Docampo was the winner. So we're gonna follow up with her and try to communicate her to get this. And now I'm gonna pass the microphone to Dr. James Lipuma for our closing remarks of today before we go to the breakouts. I'm just going to explain how the breakouts are going to work. In a little bit, you're going to see a little announcement that is going to appear in WebEx, so you get to choose if you want to go to the Spanish or English. The main channel is going to stay with the English, and whomever want to move to the Spanish one, we're going to have another conversation over there. So we're going to then now go to Dr. James Lipuma.
Yeah, and then when we come out of this, if you want to remain in the English side, you'll stay with us, and I'm assuming Dan will open it up so everyone, attendees, and the participants and the presenters can all hear us. But I just wanted to thank everyone. I think this is an excellent first annual of the State of STEM, and I think this model works well. The biggest thing that was really the intention of what I've been working on for years with my colleagues, Bruce Bouquet, Nancy Stephenfleur, and Christo, and all of you who've joined us, is about showcasing and sharing the many ways things come together. And this last conversation really brought out something that was essentially an artificial line that we draw with our own minds. There is no separation between art and science. It is just a line we draw to explain things. And if you say on the English side and you want to talk more about that, I'm assuming that's something we can all discuss about this individual perspective on the world that we can share is the story that I'm trying to get all of our students to have an avenue to do. And one of the things that Christo and I have been working on is a free, open, digital commons repository that any teacher anywhere can be set up so that we can share out what we do. And so one of the things that we're going to do is on our YouTube channel, this video will be open, and we're going to try to gather together any resources and put it into our stemforsuccess.org webpage and link over to the digital commons so that if you want to know more about how to use role playing, or if you want to know more about hands-on STEM and guided inquiry, or even full open inquiry, or project-based learning, or any of these terms that really look to help you as a teacher, or you as a principal, or you as a parent bring opportunities to your students, your children, your friends and family. If you just want help building a world in which you solve problems or meet challenges or discuss ways in which you can bring together these wonderful ideas, that's my job. My job is to help people learn and access the resources that our school and our government and all of these great workers can do. So at the close of this is each of us brings so much that together, I don't think there's a problem we can't solve when related to helping people learn STEM. So I'll turn it over to Christo to split us up if you want to go into the breakout session and have a Spanish language side. If that's you're more comfortable, that's fine. If not, I'll ask Dan to open up everyone on this side who may want to talk, and we'll just spend a few minutes discussing any of your specific questions for the panelists, and the people that stay are welcome to stay until we have to get kicked out at 3:30. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
your time.
Daniel, if you can just please open the break room. You're going to see now the Spanish session. So join me over there, whomever wants. And you can always come back to this one at any given time. So thank you very much. I'm going to be jumping to the Spanish section.
Gracias, adios.
Makes me so jealous.
Gracias. Thanks.
That is probably the extent of my high school Spanish.
I
And
was married to an Ecuadorian and I still don't speak any decent Spanish.
and I know dos cervezas, por favor. 2 beers, please.
Estoy aprendiendo español. Lentamente.
So
Very good.
Thank you.
So on this side again, I don't know. I know some of the people I had couldn't stay, past 2:30, 3 o'clock. So we did get some bleed out. And Dan, I guess you're going to manage the controls now. Can everyone be heard?
Yep.
So I don't know if you guys want to have specific questions. Is there anything anybody wants to ask anyone else? This is kind of the open session. I have some questions, but I don't want to kind of bogart the whole committee.
I say ask away. I mean,
All right. So one of the big questions I have is your guys' experiences with that transition of, especially for teachers or parents, when they read an activity, a lot of times it's made for guided inquiry because there's some end that the activity is designed to get to. And when we virtualize that, a lot of what is meant to come out of it is playing or discovery. And so without the hands-on manipulatables, do you have a good way of, I remember, John, you were talking about how a lot of the best makerspaces are just stuff with tables and tools, right? Back in the day, that's, the great craftsmen were like, well, the first thing you have to do is build the tool to make the screw, to build the tool, to make the box that you can then use to build the thing you're trying to build. Like you're starting with nothing. So I was wondering if you had some advice about, kind of the prepackaged stuff or the found objects, the disassembly of existing scrap, using analogs, maybe, the kind of using a piece of paper to start your design, just that kind of idea. Because I know a lot of our teachers, that's like the big challenge they faced was some of the underlying assumptions that turned out to be false. Like, okay, go home and get a piece of paper and a pencil. A lot of kids didn't have that.
we have always started kids out with a sketch. If you want to sketch in crayon on a napkin, like Feynman, or if you want to, grab a mechanical pencil and do it on some graph paper, we don't care. But it's got to start with your hand and your ideas going through that hand before you jump on and do all the virtual stuff. What we have found, and I can give you a specific example, but what we have found is that once a kid gets on to a CAD program or to any kind of virtual location and starts building a file, they are very hesitant to want to change it because the learning curve of building that file online naturally makes you hesitant to want to adjust any of it. So, but I can sketch on a napkin for hours. We had an example of a bunch of kids in Colorado who were designing wheels that would fit on, they were actually for the 1080 Student Racing Challenge cars. And Jeff, our engineer, had gone out to work with them. The kids that started with a CAD program because they didn't have materials with them, really didn't make it as far along as the kids who literally sat there and cut up cardboard and started with sketches, because they were willing to just go crazy with their ideas. So, to your point, I think it's extremely important while we talk about this virtual world, even a good D&D game can't be done online. You gotta have some interaction, and AI can't handle it. you need that person, you need the dice, and so with us, we need the pencil, we need the sketching time, we need a pair of scissors and some glue. And without those things, I'll teach them origami if I have to, but they need to be able to manipulate things that interact with the online world.
You know, I love that. I really believe that the organic approach to any project, storytelling or anything, is absolutely imperative. I try and encourage, I guess, from my perspective, my students to just write, just sit there in a group, in a room, quietly, and just write. Just start writing. I said, put your laundry list down there. And then evolve into what you hate the most or what you love the most. I don't care. I'm not going to read it, but I want to see you writing. And it always turns into an immediate question that they really are interested in. It always evolves within 3 pages. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's math, but 3 pages works. And by that time, the evolution of an idea that's unique to the person evolves. And that idea can be taken to a gaming, to another venue, to another whatever, but it's something that is, from a humanitarian point of view, even though that's not how you put it to the student, you don't want to overwhelm them with all those words. It's something that resonates personally to them, and it becomes a world, a picture, a beginning, a launching point for something else. And that's a technique that I really like to use in workshops when I'm with strangers, you know, students from other high schools or whatever, or middle schools. That's the first step into creative thinking and into creative storytelling. So,
I'll speak to this. You know, in theater, we had to pivot from, you know, kind of an analog approach to art, which is in a space with people, to online. And we did an entire season through Zoom, or WebEx, and it led to some very, very tricky things. But I will say I agree with what you said about a pencil. You know, when everyone asked me the most important technology that they needed while they were in this environment, and I mean, my entire desk is covered in Post-it notes. I learned that from Christo, actually, and it's because you got to jot, you got to write physically. You got to write physically. So I loved what you said about, I don't care if I'm making them do origami. They have to physically engage with something. You know, that the virtual will only take us so far, and I absolutely agree with that. And the virtual can also, you know, in theater, you can still act, right? We also ran into something interesting this year where we were having to act with these things on our faces, and everybody told me that this would be, you know, a horrible impediment. We wouldn't be able to do anything. You know, humans wouldn't be able to talk to each other again because we have these things over our face, right? And that is, it's all definitely hard, and it's very hard for children, and I don't want to dismiss that. Really don't want to dismiss the way that affects their development. But for adults that are used to seeing people's faces and have that it wasn't a major impediment. It was hard, but we had to learn how to do it. And, you know, in the spirit of improvisation, you have to adapt to it. You have to adapt. I don't know what the point of all that was, but I did like the pencil.
Yeah, well, you're talking to the guy who can't see anybody, so masks didn't really make a difference to me. You guys are
That's
all
a
in.
very good point. Absolutely.
Do you know
Most
what
of-
I've noticed? We all talk more. I mean, I was always a hand talker, but that made me unusual. But I've noticed now nearly everyone I interact with is more expressive. They move their faces more,
Gesture.
their eyes are bigger, their hands are moving. I think in some strange way, it's been good for us. We don't depend solely on what we used to communicate now.
I definitely appreciate taking the positive approach because, again, so many people just thought this spelt doom for our culture, wearing a mask. I mean, not the COVID. COVID is its own thing, but just the things we were trying to do to adapt to it, to make ourselves safe. And people just it tended to only frame things in a negative way. I think you're right. It definitely made people more physically expressive as they were trying, this is a basic acting exercise, is to put on a mask and then see what it does to your body.
Yeah.
So the whole
Yeah.
world's been engaged in this.
Also, Terry will know, 3 years ago, the first time we went to China together to work with their kids there, I had some breathing problems, which I have anyway with a condition, and they immediately, every hotel room there had masks in them. And the younger people that we were traveling with before we went out, they said, "Here, Beverly, you probably want to wear a mask because the air is not good today." And in China, nobody thinks a thing about it. And I guess when this happened here and I saw how it bothered people, it surprised me a little because there it just makes sense. And here now, I will tell you, I've dropped a grandchild off at school this morning, and she and at least 5 others of the probably 20 kids I saw were still wearing masks because for whatever reason, they're more comfortable with it. So I think it's been a really interesting thing to watch happen. I'd love some data on that, Jim, if you've got a data group that doesn't have anything to
Your
experiment with.
Anti-Clean Air Act.
Yes.
The other thing that I think we've all learned this year, I used to be very stoic on a web conference or a Zoom or whatever when I was listening to other people because I didn't want to be distracting on the screen. Now, having been on the other end of it, I'm like, yeah, oh no, bad. I move and I react because you are talking into the void. And it's so hard sometimes. So maybe it has changed the way we interact with each other.
And the delay.
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm always hungry for an audience. And not getting that response has been, I got to do a TEDx talk for NJIT and I was so excited about it. And then they said, well, we have to move it here. And it's like my heart just fell out of my, because I was ready to I expand in front of an audience. I know a lot of people don't. I get that. But I've learned to just grow in power in front of an audience in a way that this is very hard. So I've had to access different parts of my power here. But Jim, we may be getting off topic. I could be wrong about that.
There is no off topic. This is the open discussion. You guys could all be like, we want to talk about the best peanut butter in America. And that's fine. Any
I have
topic
a
is a
feeling
good
this
topic.
group could do that.
Remember, we just spent an hour talking about how you shouldn't overscript and plan an emergent story. So as long as we have the right potions and the right milestones, our story will be written.
Yes,
That's
So
part of co-design.
I have a quick question. I mentioned, I've started to notice recently the darker side of the stuff that I've been trying to sell to the world, which is the power of storytelling. And then I've noticed recently, it's also really powerful in other directions. I've been wondering. So what I'm wondering is, those of you that are really highly engaged in experiential learning, what are the parts of it that aren't as helpful? Like, where is it not a great idea? Or where does it possibly lead to trouble that we have to be aware of?
Teachers don't like messes, for one thing.
Yes.
They don't like chaos. They hate glitter. so,
That has nothing to do with storytelling.
But it does, because when I walk in, so Steam Start was my baby. I spent 5 years putting this program together, and it's because it's design thinking for babies. I mean, it's design thinking for 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9-year-olds. And they like stuff. They like to make things glittery and pom-pommy and, you know, as bright and crazy as you can imagine. And without access to those things, it's like their brains are stymied. So when I walk in and I say, we're going to do a design, the design can be about, one of them is how you're going to prop up your table, because inevitably in a classroom, there's always at least one table or desk that's wonky. It drives everybody nuts. And so we troubleshoot and we problem solve. I read a story to them about, you know, some people who had to solve that problem. And then I cover a table with crafty garbage. I mean, it is just Dollar Tree heaven on this table, but that is what makes them go nuts. They're like, we could pile pom-poms under it. No, we can't pile pom-poms because they're squishy. Okay, well, we could do folded paper. And that leads me to discussions about triangles and strength and geometry. But sometimes the mess and the chaos in a classroom is strategic. And so trying to get people who are used to being judged on how calm and focused their students are to just let it go. And I know improv, I can't imagine how difficult, you know, getting some people to just relax and be silly and look stupid is the most difficult thing about project-based learning that I've ever dealt with.
So just to add to that, if I may,
When it comes down to the older kids that I've worked with, they love to role play. I used to get calls in the middle of the night from kids on the other side of the country going, "Hi, I'm the marketing team from," and they would give their team name. And they were part of a car, you know, a radio controlled car team of some kind. But the role playing for whatever jobs they had assumed became very real to them. They didn't see themselves as, I'm a kid pretending to be a marketing team. I'm a marketing team now. So I think in some strange way, we've always role played because they take on these jobs and they look at how that job is done out in industry and then they try to mimic it. So we kind of called what we were doing a practice league for STEM professionals so that you had a place to play these games and practice over time because this was a performing art and you need to practice all these things. So even with the esports now, they form their team, they role play the different acts. You have a graphic arts group that's just making a skin for the car. The legendary wearables, these kids are role playing all the time, and now they get to make something that glitters. So I don't know that there's a place where it doesn't work. I think we don't use it enough. I really think we don't use it enough.
so if I can add to that,
And we haven't been totally aware of what we were doing that was working. I think maybe that's why this has resonated so much with me. I've seen aspects of things we've been doing over the years. Maybe we didn't realize that was why it was working. And today, I kind of got a different way to look at some of the things that we've been incorporating. And I think that's important because when you know what's happening, you know how to strengthen it instead of just let it keep going.
if I can add to that, so you need support from the administration and some of the schools that I've seen where the teachers, and to Ginny, to your point, is teachers don't like a mess. They don't want to get dirty. Some of them do, but they're out of fear of the administration or the lack of board support. So that's one of the reasons why school boards got behind training their school board members into what this looks like or what it could like in schools. Because if they weren't endorsing it, supporting it, creating policies and strategic plan and board goals, it might not stick in the classroom if they didn't know what organized chaos looks like, or this really open creativity role, whether it's role playing or building models or prototyping, it looks messy. And so that there has to be support. So some of the schools that I see that is an obstacle for this kind of STEAM that we're talking about, and all the things that we talked about today, would be that they're too stuck in the box. They're too scheduled to the standards and testing, and they're limiting that creativity And I think everybody on the call today knows this, but I still see it in a lot of districts, and at least speaking from New Jersey. And all they got to do is get out of the way, just a little bit. Let them play with the purpose. Do that project hands-on, minds-on. Let them be as creative as possible. And that's why the board and the administration need to see that. The teachers need the support from the administration to go ahead and do those things where they can shift, they can have a paradigm shift in their classroom and make it more open, more student-centered, more creative. And once that happens, when everybody's on the same page, including the parents, because some parents are like, well, why are you doing this? That's not going to help well, they just need to also, there has to be some communication between the board, the school, and the parents, the public who come in and say, what's going on here? This looks different.
You know, it's
And
interesting.
you have to make sure they know they can meet their objectives. So many of them don't believe if they're doing these things that they can meet their objectives. And it's so simple as long as we make that explicit to them, to the
Well, their
teachers.
outcome. They demonstrate success by their creativity, right? And the projects they build and create and invent and design. And then, but you have to show the public, that other teachers, that, hey, look what's going on here in these classrooms where there's innovation and creativity being allowed to go on.
Yeah.
There's a thing that we use that I use in at least the classroom in the playwriting, and it is, I mean, we tear up all the tables get reconfigured into something so everybody can see each other. And it's not a presentational, it's a you know, it's a collaborative, representational, natural environment. And then the students are empowered with leadership. They literally, let me just put this on blur. They literally are given leadership roles, each one of them, a couple of times, and they can guide the discussions. They can guide the projects. They can guide. And it's funny because if you were to take all the words that I would say in a classroom for an entire semester, I would do 40, maybe 30% talking. And everything else is interactive. And like I said in the very beginning, you know, from my perspective, this is my philosophy as a teacher, is that each character is their own hero. And if the student is empowered with becoming their own hero for whatever that project is or whatever that discussion is, then everybody, you know, comes into it. I'm surprised sometimes at the amount of discussion that I can glean from the class versus the amount of discussion that the individual heroes are gleaning from the class. It's radically different. You know, so that we like to tear up the room. Yeah. Not with glitter. That would never go.
We used to do a training style with teachers, and I love it. And as soon as COVID allows, we will be doing it again. But we go in and we call it PD, but really what we're doing is having the teacher kind of shadow us. Because as we're listening to conversations, I can whisper, okay, do you hear what they're talking about? Now you get to interject with, hey, have you thought about whatever? But then letting them know you're not going to interject with, here's the objective for today, and here are the 3 things you should be getting out of this lesson. And it's like, no, shut up, back off, only talk when you want to push or pull somebody into a conversation. And it's so much more powerful that way.
Back to what Lewis first asked, if I remember way back then, which was the dark side of storytelling. These are kind of limits on what storytelling can pose problems for the teaching style, times and limits. The other side, which I found with certain types or certain individual students, is when you empower everyone to give a narrative, they can also change the scope and range and style and content of that story, right? So we're asking them to tell a STEM story, but they want to tell a story of equity, or they want to tell a story of nationalism for India, which I had happen several times in my classes at NJIT. And, you know, there is the issue of, as much as you try to make emergent and open classrooms, there is content limits on what's appropriate at an age level, or, you know, a topic. You know, I'm in a humanities course teaching leadership. Maybe I don't want to talk about drugs and drug policy, which was literally something that happened this semester. So one of the dilemmas I think that some people have as the dark side of storytelling is, depending on the age and sophistication and diversity in your class, you are essentially abdicating some level of power, especially if you've empowered the student to tell the story, that if they're in control, that story can go anywhere. You know, you may end up with a Quentin Tarantino in your class, and that's a very different story than you thought when you thought you were dealing with Dr. Seuss.
Having taught sex ed to 7th graders,
Oh my God, this is a story I want to hear.
yes. Let's face it, I was in an inner city
Glitter?
school.
Was glitter involved again?
Lots of glitter, lots of glitter. No, in this case, it was a 7th grade bunch of kids, and they had given me what the school lovingly referred to as the revolving door kids, which meant they were constantly getting dumped out of school for a month at the time and come back in. And they probably, pardon the expression, had far more sex than I had at that point in my life. And so I was sitting there trying to teach them sex ed and yet not address many, many topics that they wanted to steer the conversation toward. And so the way that we handled it, it actually was probably good for me to have to do it early in my career, because I've learned to say, if you can't, at the beginning of any class like this, if you can't discuss this with your grandma and my grandma in the room, then you need to write it down on a piece of paper and slip it to me, and I'll assess the situation. And so it actually works pretty well with anything to say, okay, if you think this is not a topic that fits our discussion today, then just write it down on a piece of paper. If you have Jamboard, you know, if you're more interactive classrooms, but slip it to me on the sly in the chat, and I'll take a look at it. And if it's okay, then I'll give you the thumbs up. Yeah, I could tell you some stories, but it was extremely helpful, I think, to be able to weed out. I'm from the South, and you get a lot of arguments that are just not appropriate for like a 5th grade classroom. And so you had to learn to deal with that. Now, apparently you can't say gay in Florida. I don't know what I'm supposed to tell my kid. Oh, I'm sorry, you're gay, but you can't say gay in Florida. So that negative side of storytelling is getting harder and harder right now to deal with everywhere. And unless we want to get kicked out of the school, we have to be extremely aware of what their policies are.
So,
I'm sorry, Jim.
no, I was just going to say, you know, it's always a question of then potentially translation and limitation, right? If they slip it to you, you come up with a way to talk about it, or kind of prep the class. This next story has adult content. I was going to say, you have to give it the MPAA rating.
It's interesting because here at the university, I have had some writing students, one who, God bless her, was off her meds, and it was her material was inappropriate for me to read, and I have no limits really. And and she had no filter. There was no filter for her to be able to figure it out. So I met with her an hour before each class and did her assignment with her privately. in order to get that through. So we have, very dark moments. A lot of students, even right now, want to shock with their work, and they're desperate to make some sort of shock impact with their work, when in fact they're not shocking anyone, but for themselves they want that response from someone older or in charge of a situation. And that's something that it goes through periods of time. Right now, it used to be family drama. Then it's TV with guns. No, that's not a play. And then there are action movies and fantasy fiction, and role-playing games. Actually, I've had plays written about role-playing situations. They're all trying to shock you with something. And that seems to be, it's like, so I tried to circumvent that by creating a first project that was a throwaway project so that they could write anything they wanted, anything to shock. And then we got down to the humanity of who they are, and then the inner workings of who they were and what they could really say. But I felt that they needed an outlet. They needed some sort of a challenging game-like outlet to get all that shock stuff out of their system to start, and then we could get down to the brass tacks of work.
You laugh, but on a very basic level, if I'm working with younger kids, we use the abacus a lot because it's tactile. It's an exceptionally good way to teach place value and base 10 numbers. And the first thing we do is I say, pick it up, shake it, and I put the timer on and I just let them shake it for about 4 seconds. And I was like, put it down. Now you've got it out of your system. Don't do it again.
That's it. I think that says that all introduction needs to go to the dark side.
And I just want to make sure, if there's, there are some people that aren't the panelists, you can all unmute yourselves and join the conversation. I don't know how that works, but I noticed there was a question in the chat if anybody wants to address that, or if there's other things you guys want to talk about. Because we're now essentially at the end of our however much time we said we were going to talk. I'm happy to continue talking. Benefit of virtual. Are there any?
Jim,
Yeah,
I have to jump.
That's what I figured. That's why I was kind of seeing if
Yeah, I
anybody
have
had
to-
last thoughts.
Just thank you for allowing me to be part of this today. Great conversation. I do have to jump off. I have to judge a steam tank presentation in a few minutes. So
All right.
thanks
Thanks,
everybody.
John.
It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Have a good day.
I do too. My working office has been put on hold for a while. We got to get back to producing. But
All right.
thank you very much for giving us this opportunity
Thank you.
this
Very
opportunity.
interesting conversations. And as I said, if there's anything I can do to facilitate your guys' work or your interactions, let me know. Especially if you have students that you want to showcase in a digital form. We can create volumes of the STEM Month magazine or your own journals for any kind of media, videos, images, written text, PDFs. So a lot of what we're trying to do is facilitate this virtual discovery and sharing. So thank you everybody for coming.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Very nice to
been
meet you
great.
all.
Have a good day.
Thank you
Bye.
for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Bye, everybody.
And watch out for the glitter.
That was a lot of fun.
Cool.